Have you ever wondered how something as simple as a refrigerator could unravel the very threads of a family? Stick with me, because what you'll hear today is not just a story. It's a lesson. It's heartbreak. It's the unexpected strength you find when you refuse to be a victim, even in your own home. It all started on a bright afternoon I'll never forget. I was in my kitchen, the scent of coffee filling the air, when I overheard my daughter-in-law, Sandra, in the living room. Her voice was filtered with delight as she flipped through a catalog. "David, you have to see this," she said, pressing the glossy page under my son's nose, as if she'd just found treasure. "It's got all the gadgets, temperature control, built-in cameras. You can talk to it. And only $25,000. Can you imagine?" She was nearly glowing, her face alight with dreams of technology and status. My son David barely blinked. He just smiled passively, the kind of smile he puts on when he's about to let things slide past him. I thought, who needs a refrigerator that costs as much as a car? And more importantly, whose money did she expect to pay for it? That was the moment I realized there was a question in the air I hadn't dared to ask myself. Is there such a thing as loving too much, so much that they forget you are a person, not just an endless fountain? At that instant, David, thinking I couldn't see, reached into my purse, slung across the dining chair. I watched with a tight chest. Was he really digging for my credit card? Instead, his hand landed on some old papers. He pulled them out, confusion written all over his face. "Sandra, did you know Mom still owns the apartment?" He whispered, his voice a mix of worry and shock. For a moment, Sandra's smile froze. She yanked the papers away, scanning them with narrowed eyes. That silence, right then? You could feel it stretching, heavy, pregnant with things left unsaid. And yet, no one said anything. David put the papers back, and I quietly finished pouring my coffee, every drop echoing in the sudden hush. Inside, something cold began to harden in me. That night, I was lying in bed when I heard voices down the hallway. Whispers, urgent, sharp, floating through the dark. I didn't move. I didn't call out. I listened. I heard Sandra's quick sentences. "She's got savings. It's just sitting there. She barely spends it." David's responses were gruff, hesitant. "She won't notice if we use some. We have debts. This is for our future." What would you do if you heard your own child plotting over your hard-earned security? Would you pretend you were asleep too? Or would you confront the darkness and risk shattering everything? I listened, heart racing, barely breathing. Sandra kept planning. She was certain. "If we can get her card, or convince her to visit the bank, it'll be easy. We'll say it was her idea. She forgets things these days." My son's voice broke my heart most of all. "She's old. What does she need so much money for?" I clutched my blanket, not from cold, but from the shock of realizing I wasn't just facing disappointment. I was facing betrayal from the last people in the world I thought I'd lose to greed. The following days felt like a performance. Every movement, every word seemed loaded. Sandra fussed over me. "Elisa, do you want tea? Did you sleep all right?" Her kindness was barbed, each gesture hedged with lingering questions. "Are you remembering things less? You should be careful at your age," she probed one morning. "There's no shame in a little forgetfulness." That line shot through me like ice. I forced a smile, refusing to play the part she'd assigned. But deep down, I saw it. She was trying to paint me as fragile, confused, easier to manipulate. Meanwhile, David's demeanor changed too. He spoke to me with the slow patience you reserve for children. He'd explain the simplest things twice, maybe 3 times. Like he was waiting for me to crack. "You get it right, Mom?" he'd say, eyebrows raised. Tell me if you're lost. One evening, I caught Sandra rifling through my drawers. I asked her, "What are you looking for?" She started, dropped my journal, and gave a nervous laugh. "Oh, Elisa, I was just hoping to find that old recipe for tamales." I told her they were in the kitchen, not my bedroom. But her eyes slid away. David pressed on about my will. "Did you write anything down? I just want to be sure you're taken care of. You know, sometimes things happen." I saw right through him. "Don't worry. Everything's in order," I replied, firm. The days grew brittle. Tension thickened the air like dust. I knew now that I was a puzzle to be unlocked, not a person to be loved. Sandra's tone when she spoke about my savings turned from sweet concern to cold calculation. One afternoon she invited a young appliance salesman over. Without asking, he soon filled my living room with brochures of outrageously priced refrigerators, models with touchscreen panels, automatic doors, special compartments for wine I never drank. Sandra beamed. "Isn't this the future of kitchens, Elisa?" David stood beside her, arms folded. The salesman looked at me, eyes brimming with expectation. "Which one do you like?" But I shook my head. "They're all beautiful, but unnecessary. The fridge we have works fine," I said, steeling my voice. Sandra's face soured. David's fists clenched. The salesman, sensing the chill, packed up quickly. The silence after he left gathered slowly like fog. Sandra let it hang, then unleashed her anger. "You're so stingy. You don't care about us. You don't care about family." David said nothing, didn't defend me, only glared as if I'd committed some sin in denying them. That moment, it felt like I'd been cut adrift. For the first time, I wept, not for their lack, but for the loss of the illusion, for the death of a certain kind of motherly love. But something changed inside me that night. Instead of dissolving into tears, I felt a resolve settle, deep and strong. Enough being the giver with empty arms. Enough letting my love be turned into a weapon against me. As soon as the house was quiet, I gathered my financial papers and reviewed every statement. I tallied my modest savings, reminded myself of every hour behind a sewing machine, every floor scrubbed, every meal missed to ensure David could eat. I decided then and there, I was not going to give them another cent. Not by guilt, not by trick, not by theft. The next morning I brushed my hair, donned my best dress, and slipped out as dawn broke. My heart hammered the whole way to the bank. I'd never before felt so exposed, so vulnerable, and yet so absolutely certain I was doing the right thing. I was the first in line when the doors unlocked. I sat before a banker, a kindly man named Mr. Warren, and told him everything. My son, my daughter-in-law, their plans to access my account, my fears. He listened gravely, didn't flinch, didn't judge, and told me, "You're doing the right thing, Elisa. It happens more than people admit." Together we renewed every password, cancelled my card, set up urgent transaction alerts. Even more, he suggested. "Let's make a decoy account with a small sum. Only you will have access to your real savings via a special code." Relief washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe. I left the bank with new papers, new security, and a confidence I thought I'd lost. On the way home, I stopped for fresh pastries and a bouquet of daisies. Let them think I was simply running errands. At home, Sandra eyed my bag suspiciously, but I just smiled. Got some treats for tea time. She looked unconvinced, but let it go. That afternoon, she brought up the refrigerator again, this time desperate. "The store called. They said if we buy by Friday, it's 10% off. Elisa, this could be our only chance." I looked her squarely in the eye. I saw the panic flicker behind her words. and calmly said, "No, Sandra. I've made my decision. We're not buying anything we don't need." David entered tense as a spring, his jaw clenched, but I refused to yield, holding his gaze until he ducked away. That night the air thickened with tension. We moved through the house like ghosts. David barely spoke. Sandra snapped at every opportunity. But I held on to my choices, even when loneliness threatened to seep back in. A few days later, the phone rang. "Hello, this is Linda from Union Bank. We're calling about a $500 charge on your account. Could you confirm your card number for me, please?" The voice was eager, urgent, unfamiliar. Something in me knew immediately. No bank ever asks for a full number over the phone. "No, I don't give that information over the phone. If there's an issue, I'll come in myself," I replied. The woman insisted, her tone tightening. "It's urgent, Elisa. Someone may be stealing from you." I hung up. My hands shook as I realized this wasn't random. It was more manipulation, closer, bolder. I walked straight to Sandra and David's room. Their voices fell silent inside as I approached. Sandra opened the door, her face unreadable. "Did you just call pretending to be the bank?" I asked. Her eyes flashed briefly, but she played the innocent. "What do you mean? Maybe you're confused." "No, Sandra. I know what you and David have been doing. It stops now," I said with finality. Without another word, I returned to my room, shut the door, and locked it. My heart raced, but my spirit was finally unbreakable. The house became a tundra. David and Sandra, once constant companions, now withdrew into themselves. Meals were eaten apart. No one dared to look me in the eye. Sometimes I'd pass them in the hall and feel an urge to weep for what I'd lost, but mostly I was numb. A week passed before David finally confronted me. "If you're not going to help us, if you don't care, then maybe you'll have to get used to being alone. That money of yours sure won't keep you warm." His words were meant to wound, but I sat there, spine straight. "Maybe not, but at least I'll have my self-respect," I replied. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. What would you do in my place if you had to choose between chaos and your own peace? Time passed. One cold Sunday morning, Sandra had had enough. She packed her designer bag, slammed the bedroom door, and left with David trailing behind her. Their footsteps echoed down the hall and out of my life. The house was too quiet. I said to myself, this will hurt now, but freedom is the only path back to myself. For days I floated through rooms full of ghost memories. I remembered every birthday, every laugh, every moment I'd given and given. And then, little by little, a new routine took root. I signed up for weekend art classes, something I'd never made time for before. The teacher guided me to blend blue with ochre, showed me how to paint trees that stood tall even alone in a wide-open field. That first painting? It was simple. A solitary tree, roots deep, sky stretched wide. I hung it in my living room, right where David's family photo used to be. Every glance reminded me this is my home, my life. Tuesdays became for knitting, Thursdays for slow walks in the park. Saturday afternoons, my dearest friend Carol would stop by with pastries, and we'd laugh about politics, about old times, about finding joy in small, ordinary triumphs. It dawned on me one morning. Time does heal, not by erasing pain, but by layering new hopes on top. The ache of betrayal faded, the sharp edges dulled. Sometimes I'd see Sandra's robe still hanging in the closet or find one of David's old birthday cards. I'd let the memories come, let myself grieve, and then let them go, refusing to let them define what would come next. I looked out my window every day at the same stubborn tree in the yard, battered by storms, still standing. And I realized sometimes survival is a kind of revenge all its own. One morning I was returning from the market, arms loaded with sunflowers, when I spotted David at the edge of my street. He didn't look the same. His shoulders curled inward. He looked tired, lost. He raised a tentative hand. I kept walking, heart tight. He called, "Mom!" But I didn't turn. I wasn't ready to open old wounds, not when they'd only just started to heal. That night, over cinnamon tea, Carol asked, "How did it feel seeing him?" "Bittersweet," I answered. "Maybe I'll forgive him. Maybe I won't. I have a right to my peace." "You do," she said, warmth in her voice. Days blended happily into weeks, and then months. The house felt lighter. The sun felt warmer. Sometimes, after finishing a painting, I'd sit quietly, recalling all the times I'd put everyone else first, thinking that's what good mothers do, only to realize I deserve my own kindness too. I journaled those thoughts, wrote about boundaries, wrote about late-in-life wisdom, about how we, especially women, are taught to give unconditionally, never to say no, never to stop loving, no matter the cost. But there is a season when self-love becomes not selfish, but necessary for survival. And so that's what I chose. Peace over drama, dignity over guilt, solitude over betrayal. Every so often, memories of David's childhood would float to the surface. The cake we baked for his 8th birthday. The night he stayed up sick and I mopped his brow until morning. But I refused to let those sweet memories justify the wounds inflicted since. I learned to treasure the good, without inviting the bad back in. I watched the seasons change out my window. Birds building a nest just outside, each one carrying a twig, patience upon patience. I realized this was me, rebuilding. Each small joy a new twig, stronger foundations every day. To anyone listening, I want you to understand. Forgiveness isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about setting yourself free from poison, from weight, from the hope that things could be different if only you'd given more. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk forward alone, building your own peace, stone by stone. The fridge in my kitchen still hums quietly, still keeps my food cold. No smart screens, no cameras. But it's paid for, and it hasn't betrayed me. And that will always be enough. If you're standing at a crossroads, watching the people you love try to take what isn't theirs, pause. Ask yourself, are you being respected or only used? And if the answer hurts, remember my story. There's power in saying no. There's peace in walking away. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see not an old, lonely woman, but a survivor. A woman who once gave everything and finally learned to give herself the one thing she truly needed, the right to live on her own terms. And as the sun sets on another quiet afternoon, I raise my cup of tea, watch the colors spread across the sky, and smile, knowing that my greatest revenge was not anger, not bitterness, but reclaiming my life and filling it with hope again. That, in the end, is worth more than the finest refrigerator money can buy. If Elisa's story spoke to you, share your experiences in the comments. Let's support each other. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories.